Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. This is Florence. I want to talk about this Kim Kardashian and Brandon Bernard story. Initially, when I first came across it, I was not going to cover it just because it contains too many graphic details that I did not want to go over or keep reading over and over. But it looks like I'm going to have to talk about it because I'm seeing a lot of things that people are posting surrounding this matter, and it needs to be addressed because I feel like there are certain things that people are just refusing to consider, and it's flying over a lot of people's heads with the comments that I've been seeing in response to Kim's post about Brandon Bernard. Now, who is Brandon Bernard? If you do not know or have not heard anything about him, Brandon Bernard is a man on DR, okay? As a result of a crime that he committed when he was 18 years old in 1999. He was with a group of friends. They are G members, and they basically kidnapped this young couple, Christian couple, and they did some really terrible things that resulted in the death of the couple. And Brandon Bernard and the ringleader, were both sentenced to die, basically. And the ringleader, he has passed away as a result of his sentencing earlier this year, 2020, and Brandon Bernard has also recently passed as a result of his sentencing as well in Indiana, in prison over there. And before his passing, Kim Kardashian was trying to get President Trump to commute his sentence to life because Brandon was very young when he committed the crime, and Kim mentioned that a lot. He said he was very young and he's been rehabilitated and he's a changed person and he should be able to see his family and all of that. Before I get to the point of this video, I just want to say this. Kim Kardashian tries really hard to fight for people that she believes are unjustly sentenced, and she sometimes tries to get them out of prison or sometimes have their sentences commuted to, a lesser sentence, right? So she tries really hard, which is something a lot of people appreciate. However, I feel like sometimes there is a certain disconnect between her and the people that she is trying to help, that she oversteps and goes about things in a less than smart way, okay? And it can almost come across as insensitive to certain people. Now, I'm all for people that are unjustly put behind bars to be fought for and have their sentences commuted or even released if they deserve for that to happen. However, that is not always the case. Sometimes a lot of these people are very, very terrible people, and that is something that we cannot forget. Even though they're humans, some people will do things sometimes that will make you question if they're truly human. My video is going to be about the couple, the Badgeleys, that were the victims of this crime, not about Bernard and not really about Kim, but it's going to obviously mention them. But you know what, I'm just gonna go straight to the point. A lot of this talk about commuting Bernard's sentence to life is based on people's belief that no one should be sentenced to die by the courts or by anyone else. And while that is a valid argument, everyone's argument is a valid argument if that's what they feel. What I want to say is this. In all of this talk, very, very rarely do you hear people mention the actual victims of this crime. It's almost as if just because the crime happened a long time ago, they're just not really, they almost don't matter anymore, or the crime isn't so bad anymore, or I don't know what's the mentality of people that just completely forget about the victims are. But whatever it is, they completely stop talking about the victims and they just focus on the perpetrator of this heinous act. What has happened to Brennan Bernard is sad. However, I'm going to focus on Todd and Stacy Badgley because to me, they are the number one victims of the situation. So Todd and Stacy Badgley they're a young couple, Christian youth ministers. They're from Iowa, and basically they go to church a lot. They minister a lot to youth. And guess what kinds of youth they minister to? They minister to youth like Brennan Bernard and his friends. Okay, this couple actually believed they were doing some good in the world and they were making the world a better place by basically being themselves and doing what they do, which is helping them, praying for people, and just ministering to people in different ways. So a few days before they met Brandon and his friends, they were attending a service. They attended a church revival meeting. They were having lunches and dinners with their friends, and they were just honestly good, happy people, right? So on that day, the couple attended service and then had lunch with their friends, and then they decided to stop at a convenience store to use a payphone. And they were approached by one of Brandon's friends called Christopher Vialva, another friend called Christopher Lewis, and another friend called Tony Sparks. And that was when their nightmare began. So basically, the teens had a gun or guns. I don't know how many guns, but I know they had at least one gun, which they pointed at the couple, threatened them, and basically kidnapped them, asked them to get into the trunk of their car, and they were driven around for 6 hours. 6 hours, guys. 6 hours. That's a long time. This is not like a bunch of freaked out little kids and they didn't know what they were doing and it all just happened too fast, because we hear that a lot, right? When a crime is committed, we hear, oh, everything happened so fast. I didn't know what happened. Well, this didn't happen fast. 6 hours. That's almost a whole work shift. Like that's almost like a 9 to 5 work hour shift. That's a long time. So for 6 hours, they were driving this couple around. They were speaking to the couple. They were having conversations with the couple. The couple were talking to them. They were talking to them about Christianity, about praying, asking them if they go to church, asking them about Jesus. Like they were having a conversation with this couple while the couple were locked in the trunk of the car. So the couple actually, the Badgleys, actually thought they were getting through to these guys, but clearly they weren't. And finally, the boys said that they had to basically end the lives of the Badgleys because they had seen their faces and they can't let them go free. So the ringleader, Christopher Vialva, ended up shooting Todd and Stacy Badgley. Todd passed away right away. Stacy did not. She was alive. I don't know if she was conscious. The reports do not say that. So we don't know if she was conscious and moving, or she was alive but unconscious while still breathing. But this is where Brandon comes in with his lighter fluid and his light, which he used to basically set Todd and Stacy on fire. Stacy was still alive. She basically burned to death because there was some smoke in her lungs, which means there was smoke inhalation, which means she was breathing when she was on fire. And that was the role that Brandon Bernard played. So she was alive until he set her on fire. And he was a G member. Remember that. He was not some innocent little kid just leaving school, and he was kind of grabbed by a bunch of rough guys and he had to do what they said. No. He had a family. He lived with his mom. He had siblings, and he chose to become a G member and to do whatever they do, running around the streets, terrorizing people. He was 18. He was an adult. He was not like some prepubescent little kid, or he was not a 10, 11-year-old that was forced and being recruited or any of that. He made choices, and this couple ended up losing their lives. Now, nobody is talking about Todd and Stacy Badgley. Nobody is talking about all the victims of this heinous act. And by the way, the victims are not just Todd and Stacy, they're Todd and Stacy's parents, uncles, cousins, nieces, nephews, co-workers, friends. These are all the victims of this heinous act, not just the people that, died. But when Kim Kardashian is making certain comments, there are certain comments that she posted where she kind of gave a disclaimer. Matter of fact, let me find it and I will read it. So she said, "First, I want to say that a terrible crime was committed, and me fighting for a stay of execution does not take away from the sympathy I have for the victims, Todd and Stacy Badgley, and their families. My heart breaks for everyone involved." That was her addressing the actual victims of the crime. After that, she just focused on Brandon, the perpetrator, one of the perpetrators of the act, right? She no longer, she did not go into any detail about who Todd and Stacy is, did not talk about them, did not really highlight them, because that would look bad on Brandon. And if you know what Brandon and his friends did to this couple, you would be less likely to feel empathy for him. So of course they won't talk about the couple. And the less they talk about the couple, the less of a factor they become. Meanwhile, they're the true victims of this. Just before Christopher Vialva, I don't know if I'm pronouncing his name correctly, but I don't care. Just before Christopher Vialva shot the couple, Todd and Stacy actually prayed for the boys. According to the report, Stacy's last words were, "Jesus loves you and Jesus take care of us." This is after they've had a long 6-hour conversation with this couple, and they still did everything that they did. And somehow in 2020, it is okay for us to simply ignore the true victims, how the living victims feel about all of this, and just focus on the perpetrators and try to help the perpetrators as much as possible without taking into consideration how it'll affect the living victims. Todd and Stacy still have relatives alive. They have relatives that are still walking this earth. And somehow they don't factor into any of this. We're just going to independently use our our resources and our privilege to commute a sentence of someone that committed such a heinous crime on people that did absolutely nothing wrong but try to help society. You guys should understand that I'm not saying that I am a proponent of the D sentence, and I'm not saying that I'm not a proponent of the D sentence. That is not the conversation I'm having here. If you don't understand that by now, you should. What I'm saying is Kim should have tried a little bit harder to bring the family of Todd and Stacy into the conversation. And by that, I don't mean just mentioning them or talking about them. I mean sitting down with them, talking with them, and having them weigh in and possibly create some kind of a line of communication or even relationship between Bernard and Todd and Stacy's family, and then bringing them into the conversation and, getting them to a place where this is easier for them to accept that she's going to try to commute the sentence rather than just completely ignoring them and just using her privilege to change a person's sentence that did something terrible. That's what I'm saying. She should have brought them into the conversation, not just completely ignored them. That makes no sense to me at all. We can see Brandon Bernard's photos. We see his photos smiling. We see him with his family. We see him holding up a picture. We see his parents, his sister. I don't know if those are his sisters, but they appear to be either his siblings or his kids. And so he's been humanized a lot. The more of a person's photo that you see, a person's image in this kind of a familial setting, the more human they become to you, and it begins to really affect how you view them and how much empathy you have for them. And it makes you see them in a more positive light, whether you realize it or not. We do not see that many photos of Todd and Stacy, though. It's very, very hard to find photos of them. You only see this grainy photo that I posted and another photo that you see all over the internet, and that is it. You don't see them doing the good work that they do, helping the youth. You don't see them going to church and trying to be the best people that they can be, praying, attending church service, and just going about their lives. You don't see that. So it's easy to not really consider them when people leave certain posts that I've been seeing, and I'm going to read a few of the posts here. So I'm only going to read 2 posts. The first one I do not agree with. The second one I do agree with. Okay, so here's what the first one says. Some of these comments lack sensitivity, empathy, and mercy. Let's put aside the first 2 emotions and focus on mercy. Mercy by definition means compassion or forgiveness shown towards someone whom it is within one's power to punish or harm. Biblically, mercy is something none of us deserve, but God gives. One day you may find yourself asking for mercy for yourself or someone you care deeply about. I pray you receive it. Judge not, lest you be judged. So, first of all, this is a very silly post, if I can say that, because, judges exist for a reason. People have to be judged. It's the judicial system, that's the whole point. And she talked about sensitivity, empathy, and mercy. However, the tone, and from what I gather, she was referring to all of these to be given to the perpetrator, not to the living victims, because they're still living victims. Even though Todd and Stacy have passed on, they left families behind that are still suffering through the loss of their loved one. Where is the empathy and sensitivity for them? Of course, it's nowhere to be found. Okay, this second post I do agree with, at least parts of it, and it says this: "No ma'am, not me. I'm not signing it. These boys need to learn to stay at home and take up a book, a guitar, or a basketball. I know life is hard. I know society was designed to make them unprogressive, but you gotta fight against all odds. What kind of evil have you got planted in you to do that to two innocent people doing what's right? That's horrific. He can go ahead and figure this one out with you, Kim, possible. 18 years old, and the one thing you found time for is to put innocent people's car on fire. God forgive me, but I wouldn't sign it, not even for my own child. Nope. So there are people on opposite sides of the fence here, and I absolutely agree that I do not feel comfortable with the D sentence being put on anyone, and that's not the point of my video. I'm not saying that he definitely should get, his judgment and pass on. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that the focus is not even on the victims at all. Like, they're not even coming up. Their names are not even being mentioned by Kim or any of the people advocating for this man's sentence to be commuted. I know that the crime itself is not the point of that they're trying to bring attention to. However, it is important because those people were human beings and they were just snuffed out as if they were nothing. It is not okay. I can never focus on the perpetrator of a crime when they're victims of the crime. All of my empathy, my concern, my worry goes to the living victims of the crime. My empathy goes to the ones that have passed on and the ones that are still living, not to the perpetrator. I simply cannot. I can't even focus enough on this Bernard guy to try to sign any petition or anything, even though it's too late now. As at the time that I'm making this video, it's too late now. But I can't even just bring myself to doing that because some things are just too bad. Like, these are entire human beings. Like, human beings, adults, human beings. It's not as if they're so, I don't know. I don't even know how they can possibly justify this. And a lot of people are saying that the man has changed and he's been rehabilitated and he's a different person. Well, he's behind bars. He has no freedom. It's kind of hard to go around committing murders and kidnappings and robberies when you're locked behind bars. That's the whole point of keeping a person behind bars. So we don't know that he's rehabilitated. First of all, that's another thing that people don't seem to realize, is that when a person is behind bars, you do not know that they're rehabilitated. You know when they've been released, they're no longer under probation, and they have the freedom to travel and just live their life the way that they choose. That's how you truly know if a person has rehabilitated or not. So as far as them saying he's a changed person, well, we don't know that. We don't know that. When people are facing their own mortality, their behaviors change a lot because of it. Not because they actually think that what they did was wrong. And, it's just really sad. I just feel like more people should focus on the actual victims of this and not so much on Bernard and his friends. It's just, it's terrible. And I just had to make this video to say, please, let's not forget about the actual victims of crimes when it happens, because we focus so much on the perpetrators and try to help them out of prison or commute their sentences or make their lives comfortable, that we forget that there's still some living victims out there. The parents, the uncles, all those relatives and friends, they're still alive and they're still suffering through the actions of this Bernard guy and his friends. So how about we factor them into the conversation somehow? As a matter of fact, I think one of the couple, one of their parents complained about how Kim was not taking their own feelings into consideration, but Kim did not respond to that, obviously, because, she has to stay away from the actual victims as much as possible so that people can continue to see Bernard as a good person, which, according to his actions, he was not. And yes, Kim keeps trying to make it seem as though he did not play a major role at the time of the occurrence, even though he did. He set human beings on fire. Like, it doesn't matter if they're alive or not, which, by the way, the woman was, but she keeps trying to say that he played a minor role, which is preposterous. Just because something happened many years ago doesn't make it any less terrible. And we just cannot forget the victims. Let's make the victims our priority, not the perpetrators. That's basically all I'm saying. My empathy and concern goes to Todd and Stacy Badgley's family, not to Bernard. That's all I have to say in this video. Thank you guys for watching. See you in my next one. Bye, guys.